Thanks for joining us on Bobbye Tonilee Unplugged, where the message is always truthful, authentic, and inspiring. For more information on Bobbye Tonilee Unplugged, visit bobbyeandtonilee.com. Now your hosts, Bobbye and Tonilee.
Hello, welcome to Bobbye Tonilee Unplugged. My name is Bobbye Brooks. I'll be your host for today's show right here at K-Praise 1210 a.m. every day at 10 a.m. Glad you could be with us. Don't forget to join us online at dailydisciples.org. That's our website, dailydisciples.org. And you can sign up for daily devotions. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you go to the website and click the daily devotional tab, they are absolutely free. They come delivered to your mailbox, your email box every day. And you can opt out at any time. So we just love to get the message out across the world. They go out all over the world every day. When you get to dailydisciples.org, you can also click the Bobbye and Tonilee Unplugged banner. It comes up right on the homepage, and that takes you to our YouTube channel. And one of the things that we've been really working on with our amazing video producer, award-winning video producer, I might add, Eddie Ron, he is setting up a full-blown worldwide global podcast system for us that's going to be on iTunes and available on-demand downloads. So if you get to the Bobbye and Tonilee Unplugged banner, go to YouTube and subscribe to the Bobbye and Tonilee Unplugged programs. You'll also see lots of other videos on there. There's a lot of playlists, and we want to use this platform to get the message to the world, which is what I want to talk about today. Tonilee and I, for the past, 10 years or so, have been involved in multiple forms of media, if you will, from radio right here in San Diego to television. And when I say right here in San Diego, I know that there's so many people listening in other parts of the world and certainly in the country, but being based in San Diego, certainly here at our home station, is always a blessing. But we've also been on television. We've been on, channels like YouTube and Vimeo, and have done all kinds of other types of media throughout the years, mainly to get the gospel out. Social media being also another big one. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest. And one of the things that happens just about every day in our office is a phone call or an email from someone asking for help. And I will tell you that 99% of the time, that someone is a person who wants to help others. We're here on this earth to help others. When it's all said and done, I guess we could say the first reason we're here is to worship the Lord. Going all the way back to the very beginning, God made us, He created us in His image to worship Him. That is really what it's all about. And interestingly enough, you may not know this, but the very first time the word worship is used in the Bible is when Abraham is getting ready to sacrifice Isaac on the altar. Remember the story where God tells Abraham to take Isaac up, and they go up to prepare for a sacrifice. And back in those days, they would go up to a certain place and set up usually on a rock or a stone, and there would be an animal killed to offer as a sacrifice, and that animal would be killed in preparation for that. And Abraham Abraham knew what God was asking him to do, to take Isaac, his own son. And he uses the word that you're going to go and worship me. It was the word worship used in relation to this sacrifice. And that was the very first time it's used in the Bible even. And that gives us a clue that worship is a sacrifice unto the Lord. And as we look at the Bible and talk about issues in the Bible, and we think about those things, Tonilee and I over the years have first and foremost wanted to put our ministry in a situation always to worship the Lord. And in doing so, if you are listening right now and you're a pastor or a ministry leader, or maybe just serving at your local church or in a nonprofit, you know very well that it's a sacrifice To worship the Lord is a sacrifice. You're always giving of yourself. You're giving of your own needs and wants and desires in order to do what God has called you to do. Well, that sacrifice unto the Lord is a form of worship. Isn't that great to know? That so often we think of worship as just singing or praising or maybe just our own quiet time with God, that we worship Him in spirit and in truth, as Jesus says, that true worshipers worship in spirit and in truth. But in that whole process, our lives, when we sacrifice unto the Lord, is the greatest act of worship. So why are we here? Well, the first reason is to worship God, to be that living sacrifice, as Paul said. But in doing so, we have a purpose. God has a plan for us. So it's not just to sit around all day as the living sacrifice. Living sacrifice means that we're out doing something. To do something is the whole process of giving up of ourselves to do the work that God has called us to do. So TL and I over the years have had to continue to get very creative in how do we serve the Lord? How do we, as daily disciples, continue to get the message out? Because as a parachurch ministry, our foundation of this ministry is based on creating resources for people to learn about the Lord, to help people walk out their faith with God, teaching Bible studies. We write and we teach Bible studies. We write those daily devotions. We go out and we speak at events, retreats, teas, whatever it may be, conferences we've done all over the country over the past few years. And in doing all of that, we've also had to get very creative in this new world. And this is the other point for today. How do we use these tools and resources of this new world? And I'll talk about that in a moment, what that means. In relation to the old principles we might think of in worshiping God. So how do we as Christians somehow integrate these new things that are happening that many of us, as if you'll forgive the term, maybe old school, okay, we have maybe some more traditional principles in our faith, that being how we go to church or how we worship in our Bible studies, how we approach our own practices of faith. But this new era that we're in is very, very different. It's been very challenging for churches. There are churches now that have to have contemporary services as opposed to just one service. They may need to add a contemporary service to reach people who don't want to sing the hymns anymore. They want to sing what's on the Christian radio. They don't want to have the music turned up at a loud volume and the band playing. They want maybe the organ, as I grew up in the Baptist church, the organ and the piano. That was it. There were no drums. So we have this conflict that a lot of churches are facing. Then you bring in this whole thing about social media. How do we use social media to talk about the gospel? And it's so neat to see that a lot of churches now are using those platforms. Right here in San Diego, the Rock Church uses social media really heavily. Pastor Miles will tweet and will put out messages on Facebook and use these tools. Dr. David Jeremiah, same thing. He tweets out inspirational messages. There's a lot of pastors now across the country using these tools that go out all over the world to give a nugget every day to somebody. And that nugget may be all that person gets for the entire week. They may not be going to church. And that's something that Tony Lee and I addressed a while ago. It was actually a very popular topic on the radio, was why do Christians not go to church anymore? Or why do Christians just stop going to church? And let me tell you, the response we had just in asking that question, have you stopped going to church as a Christian? We had many, many people send us messages and emails telling us why they no longer go to church, okay? And church is a place of worship. It's a place to come and celebrate and to really enjoy the message. And as we take this quick break, you're going to hear about an upcoming event. where you get to go to a church, and maybe you're from the old school like me, and I want you to hear this, this announcement about an event coming up, because if you love gospel music, you don't want to miss it. I've got a lot more to talk about here at Bobbye Tonilee Unplugged, so don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
El Cajon Wesleyan Church announces an evening of Southern gospel music as we welcome Legacy 5 in concert, Sunday, May 1st at 1500 East Lexington Avenue in El Cajon. This will be a night to remember, filled with unforgettable worship and the soulful Southern gospel style. It's Legacy 5 in concert, Sunday, May 1st at El Cajon Wesleyan Church. Doors open at 4 p.m. For more information, call 619-442-5941 or visit www.eastcountysoutherngospel.net. This event has open seating. A love offering will be received.
That's a praise Him. That's a glory be, and blessed be His name.
Welcome back to Bobbye Tonilee Unplugged. My name is Bobbye Brooks. I'm your host for today's show. Tony Lee is out of the studio today. But hey, we're having a great time. The message for today's show, by the way, if I were going to put a title on this, I would say it's how do we integrate kind of the traditional Christianity with this contemporary Christianity, okay? I'm talking about how God put us here on this earth for really one primary purpose when He created us, to worship Him. And that means that everything in our life is to be involved and surrounded with worshiping God. We are that sweet-smelling aroma that lifts up to His nostrils. That's why we're here. But how do we accomplish what He's put us here to do? Because He put us here to live and to breathe and to go do things. That's the purpose. As we do those things, we worship Him. And yet, I think today more than any time in history, even though in history there's been a tremendous amount of obviously upheavals and riots and wars and battles over Christian issues for decades and centuries. But right now, we're living in a very interesting time where traditional Christianity is conflicting with contemporary Christianity. You just heard a commercial about a gospel singing event. And there are actually 2 events coming up in San Diego, so you want to stay tuned and listen to the information about them. 2 opportunities that you have if you love gospel music, you know, the quartets and the quintets and the harmonies. We have some wonderful people involved with bringing gospel music to Southern California. I was raised in the South. That's a tradition. That's a tradition, and it's a dying tradition in a lot of ways. A lot of people, as we met with the person who's behind really pushing for this, information, her name is Ruth Ann, and Ruth Ann has such a heart and a passion to let people know about this amazing gift that these men and women have to go out and sing, and it's more of that traditional type of gospel music, and it's not well received everywhere anymore because it conflicts with contemporary Christian music. Now, I love Chris Tomlin and Casting Crowns, and I love the contemporary music, but I also love me some good Southern gospel as well. So there's a way that we can integrate both, because at the end of the day, all God cares about is what's in our hearts, that we're worshiping Him. But as a ministry, we want to make you aware of the various opportunities that's coming up. So don't forget to mark your calendar for those dates. You can get more information at dailydisciples.org or just call 800-992-0369. And speaking of that as well, as a ministry, like so many others, we depend on your help to fund everything going on. And I'll just make a quick note about it because Eddie, as our producer, mentions this on every show. If you want to donate to the program or if you want to sponsor any part of this show, we really do need your help. And we don't ask for help a lot, we don't mention a lot, but as we look at what's happening today, boy, getting the gospel out is very expensive. I will just be quite honest with you. It's something that has changed and it is very expensive, and that's why we in San Diego are one of the only local ministries on the air. So if you'd like to be a part of this program and helping us continue to stay on the air, just call 800-992-0369. We'd love to talk to you about being a sponsor and being part of a partnership with us, or if you want to donate in any way, you can do that just by going to dailydisciples.org, and right there on the homepage is a donate button. So 800-992-0369. We appreciate any love offering that you would like to give. It 100% goes to support the efforts of Daily Disciples Ministries continuing to use this new platform of media to get the message out, which is what we're talking about today. Worshiping God is all about us being out there as lights into the world. And as I said earlier, you know, for pastors and churches having to maybe put on 2 or 3 different services because trying to reach different audiences with different taste, it's very hard. And then social media, you know, how do we use social media? Well, every single person can use social media. If you have a Facebook page and you're posting pictures of your grandchildren or children or people in your family or events that's happening in your life, you can also post just inspirational messages. And you never know when that's going to reach someone who really needs to hear it. We will post on Instagram regularly a picture with a verse on it. And I got to tell you this in all honesty. I'm old school. I'm in my 50s now. I didn't grow up in this era. Most of us, probably if you're listening, you're probably like me, you didn't either. And Instagram is something that I'd never heard of until a few years ago and didn't really care about it. If you're listening, you probably agree with me. It's like, who cares? But Instagram was bought. You don't even want to know how much somebody paid for Instagram. Okay, I won't even go into that. It's ridiculous, like $1 billion, right? But that being said, we have to take notice that something of that magnitude is going to reach the world. So Daily Disciples has an Instagram page. You can go to instagram.com/dailydisciples. And on there, you will see all of our pictures and posts that, thank goodness, someone in our office does for us. But I will use it. I have it on my phone. And lots of times when I'm at an event, I'll upload a picture to it. Here's what's amazing. We have almost 7,000 followers. And the instant that a picture or a graphic is posted, especially one with a verse or something related to God, I am bombarded with notifications. And I have them on my phone on purpose just because I want to know, does this really work? Are people really paying attention to this stuff? I'm sure you asked yourself the same thing. Do I really care about this social media? Does anybody really pay attention to this? Well, let me tell you, within 5 minutes, there will be over 100 views. And they're not just views, there's someone who took the time to actually click the like button. Now, views could be millions, but someone who took the time to click like is hundreds. And I am blown away every time it happens. This is part of our new contemporary Christian platform. And no matter how much we want to rebel against it, no matter how much we want to say, I'm too old, I can't do that, I don't care, listen to me. If you're here on this earth right now as a Christian to serve and to worship God, to bring forth His message, to continue the gospel, you do not have to be a ministry. You do not have to lead a church. We're all called as individuals to make a difference. These types of little platforms are free resources to do it. But this is where, as attitudes come in, we want to remember our heart. And this is not my soapbox at all today. You know I get on my soapboxes. This is more of a prayer, in that we as Christians need to continue to ask the Lord to teach us new things. I'm so excited. You know, I've got people that come in with Media for Women who want to do something new, and many people I'm talking to now are well into their 60s. And they get so excited about, wow, I'm going to do this. I talked to a lady on the phone the other day who has an incredible story of overcoming this entrapment in her life. And she wants to share her story. And it was, as we spoke and as she shared, her voice just got, you know, more and more intense and passionate in her love for God and her thankfulness to Him. And her excitement grew just in talking about a few things that we can help her do. And a lot of these things are free. They don't cost anything. There's always a little bit of an investment. I'll be honest with you. There's that sacrifice of worship sometimes is money. And believe me, running a ministry and being part of what we do, that is the biggest issue everybody has, is financials. And by the way, that's the one thing God tests our hearts in a lot, is our finances. Where we put our money has a lot to do with where we worship and how we worship. Are we willing to give? Are we willing to sacrifice as a form of worship unto the Lord? And again, that's what we always struggle with, because today, as we're living in this new world, as I'm calling it, the economy is just not what it used to be. We've all had to deal with a new normal, as what it's called, a new normal of very limited disposable income. So people don't have a lot of extra money around to do things that maybe they'd like to do. So we're being faced all the time with the challenge. Where do we put our money? Where do we put our time? Where do we put our service? Well, just remember all of that through the lens of God, through the eyes of God. He's looking at the intents and the desires of our hearts, knowing that any time and every time we're willing to give, it's a sacrifice, which, by the way, is a form of worship. And that is that sweet smelling aroma, that incense, if you will, that was on the altar of incense that God would have the priest light on fire every day so that smell would come up to God's nostrils. Well, that's who we are today. We place ourselves on the altar willingly so that we can sacrifice and be that sweet smelling aroma to the Lord. So don't get caught up in just your traditions versus the new stuff. Make sure that you're willing to integrate together. Make sure that you're willing to work together. And I just want to make another mention about couple of great events coming up in San Diego. Ruth Ann DeForest is behind this really heavy desire to bring gospel music, and there's two wonderful bands that are coming. I shouldn't say bands, they're singers, they're quartets. I think one is 4 and one has 5 men in it. Those beautiful harmonies, and you can get all the information by calling 800-992-0369 and going to dailydisciples.org. If you have any questions about that and would love to know all the details, Eddie, if you're listening, you're going to hear a commercial right after the show goes off to get all the details, where it's at and where it's held. And it is something that is so special because, again, I grew up with Southern Gospel and you can't find it in Southern California. So praise God, there's someone stepping out and bringing something like this to us. Don't be afraid to step out and do something different. If we can help you in any way, we have this other business called Media for Women. Give us a call, free consult. Maybe you have a book idea. Maybe you have something that God's put on your heart to tell your story. One of my favorite things to talk about is how you can market and monetize your message. It's really where you can put your story out there. And you know what? It's okay to get paid to do it because God knows we need the finances to put back into the kingdom. That's the way it is. Amen. We need finances to put money back into the kingdom, and He will provide. As always, I want to thank you for being a supporter of Bobbye Tonilee Unplugged here at Daily Disciples. We appreciate your donations. We're asking for people to step up and really help us here stay on the air. We're financially, this is everything is expensive now. And if you'd like to partner with us, be a sponsor with us, you hear Eddie talking about that, don't hesitate to call 800-992-0369 or go to dailydisciples.org, and at any love offering is very, very appreciated. Thanks again for listening. Have a great day. God bless. You've been listening to Bobbye Tonilee Unplugged here at K-Praise 1210 AM. Stay tuned for next episode coming up tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. Stay in God's gracious hands and His love. God bless, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for tuning into Bobbye and Tonilee Unplugged. Tune in every day on air and online. For more real life, real answers from Bobbye and Tonilee, Subscribe to the Bobbye and Tonilee channel, and for more information, visit BobbyeandTonilee.com.